Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carmine Sabia for Explain America, and the news just keeps getting worse for Joe Biden as we head towards the 2024 election. Before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also smash that join button and get on the front lines with us to help preserve conservative values and fight for former President Donald Trump. You know, Joe Biden cannot afford to lose any more of his coalition that brought him to victory in 2020. The youth vote seems to be migrating away from him. The far left progressives seem less interested in him than they have any other previous candidate. And now he's hemorrhaging black votes. That is the assessment of Larry Kudlow and of all the polling, really. And I got to tell you guys, here's what you need to know. The Republican Party can win without the black vote. They have for a long time. The Democrat Party cannot win without the black vote. They need it. It is a staple of their party, and without it, they do not win. Now, if black voters are moving over towards the Republican Party, Democrats have to replace them with somebody. So who do you think they're trying to replace them with? I'm not going to say it here. I can't. You guys know. I want you to say it in the comments after you watch this clip.
There are so many phony charges and untruths around across so many issues, sometimes hard to sort things out. So let me just give you a brief stream of consciousness, okay? Today is Juneteenth, which celebrates the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation that occurred June 19th, 1865, under the Union Major General Gordon Granger in Galveston, Texas. This is a good holiday. It's a noble holiday. But of course, here's Joe Biden and his folks who can't resist calling Donald Trump and Republicans racist. Really, Joe? You can't even let up today on what should be a unifying holiday? So I'm going to tell you, you asked for this. First of all, there isn't a racist bone in Donald Trump's body. Second, it was the Abraham Lincoln and then Ulysses S. Grant Republican Party that was the party of the emancipation of the slaves. Unfortunately, and terribly unfortunately, for the next 100 years or so, it was the Jim Crow Democratic Party that obstructed emancipation and the implementation of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. Now, Joe Biden ought to know all about this because he eulogized glowingly at the funeral of Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who was a Klansman. Now, for just about 100 years or more, it was the Democrats and Dixiecrats of the South who blocked civil rights legislation. Finally, in his best moment, Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, worked with Republicans to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But Joe Biden and his pals shouldn't be so quick to throw stones because they live in glass houses. And there's a marvelous op-ed today by the distinguished African-American Wall Street Journal columnist Jason Riley called "Trump Gets Serious About Black Voters." Riley lauds the former president for actually going to places like the South Bronx and a black church in Detroit and echoes Trump's strong economic track record that helped blacks and minorities and, frankly, the entire working class during his first term. Joe Biden is hemorrhaging black support here on Juneteenth, and calling Trump a racist is not going to change anything. In fact, it's stupid. It's pathetic. Nobody is going to buy it. Likewise, Joe Biden's desperate last-minute election year measure to grant parole-in-place authority for illegal alien spouses of U.S. citizens. This is DACA 2.0. It's an election year ploy. It will be challenged and held up in courts just like DACA 1.0. Without congressional legislation, none of these amnesty measures will be implemented or will work. But even more than hemorrhaging black support, Mr. Biden has lost virtually all support regarding his open border catastrophe that is killing innocent Americans and wreaking havoc across America. Fraudulent marriages and phony executive orders are no substitutes for serious policy actions. Joe Biden's not kidding anybody about any of this. In fact, it makes him look so blatantly political and low down that the hypocrisy of it all will probably lose him votes. All right? And then there's finally the relatively minor economic point that the already massive budget breakdown is getting worse. I say minor because not as important as black emancipation or the monstrous criminality linked to open borders. But a $2 trillion budget deficit, as far as the eye can see, during a period where there's no pandemic or depression or nothing happening to Biden's $1.7 trillion deficit. Whatever happened to those Biden $1.7 trillion deficit reduction that he says he was going to have? Well, now the scorekeepers at the Congressional Budget Office have just jacked up their FY24 spending numbers by about $400 billion. Cancel student loans, Medicaid, and FDIC bank bailouts are the principal cause. So now budget spending headed towards 25% of GDP. That's compared to the 50-year average of only 21%. And the federal debt held by the public now headed towards $51 trillion, which is about 122% of GDP. Once again, Mr. Biden tries to blame everything on Donald Trump. But Trump's only real big spending year was COVID 2020, when he acted responsibly by cutting a deal with Democrats to save the country. Biden, on the other hand, has spent over $6 trillion after inheriting a full employment economy from Trump, and thus the 20% Bidenflation shows no signs of ending anytime soon. You know, Joe Biden thinks insurrection and racism and something called democracy is going to bail him out. But the polling numbers so far show his entire campaign is a failure. And they keep missing the point. But Donald Trump is pulling together a working-class coalition of all colors and stripes based on the theory that success is the ultimate unifier and truth. And that's my riff.